everyone, welcome to Ellis Mowers. I appreciate y'all watching the channel as always. A lot of exciting things happening here on the channel. We're approaching 6 years on YouTube. Over the week of Christmas leading into New Year's, I have a 4-part series of everything that I did in this garage to make it work better for me. Hopefully y'all enjoy that. And then launching in January, I have a second YouTube channel called Casey Plays Golf that we'll be launching in January. If you like golf, it's just basically me playing rounds of golf with a bunch of graphics and shot by shot of a mid-handicap golfer. So I'll put a link to that below as well. But today is a small engine video on Ellis Mowers here. And it's a pretty standard issue when it comes to small engines and generators. This is a Porter cable electric generator. It's a 5250 watt with a 10 horsepower Briggs & Stratton overhead valve horizontal shaft engine on it. And what I mean typical, I mean, you know, people get these, you don't have to use them for 2-3 years, and then all of a sudden you need something, or you need power, you have a power outage, ice storm, hurricane, whatever. And you pull this thing out and people think it's going to start, and it doesn't. This one's been sitting up a while. I did get this in a lot of items for, I believe, $100. So if I get this fixed and running, it's a $300 generator. So should need a gas tank clean out, carb clean out, and just a general cleaning overall. And hopefully that's all this thing's going to need. So let's go ahead and get started on this Porter cable generator. And I'll give you a look around. We'll take the gas tank off, wash it out, clean it out, do whatever we need to with that. And then we will clean the carburetor out as well, put it all back together. Hopefully you have a running generator. Send it on down the line here in the winter so that if any winter storms pop up, somebody's got it and they can use it on their house. Let's go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Ellis at ellismowers.com or at ellismowers09 on Instagram and Facebook. Let's get started. And there's really not a lot to see here, guys. It's a 5250 watt Porter cable generator, and what it's doing is it's just had a lot of varnish in the tank here, and it's had, you know, this is rotted off. The little 90-degree thing is a little crusted. We'll see if we can save that or if we have to buy a new one. Gas tank, I mean, gas situation's pretty bad in it too. So if you look down in there, so got that going on. Needs a big old clean out. 10 horsepower Briggs. Looks looks complete. I think I'm going to attempt to clean this carburetor instead of getting a new one. The on-off switch is a little bit chewed up just from probably something hitting it at some point. It does have compression and it will turn over. I do know that much. I don't know if I've tried to start it yet, but you can hear it. If you give me just a second, I'll grab some stuff and see if we can get it started, at least briefly here. Alright, so here we go. Just a couple of 10 millimeters here. This should be like a mid-2000s model because it's the overhead valve, and I think they came about in like 2003 to 2005 or something like that. You know, emissions regulations and all that kind of push the flatheads out. I don't see the date code anywhere easily visible. Let's just see what we got here. On. Come on now. I think that it would have at least tried to kick over right here. A little bit of extra there. Interesting. Throttle be stuck. I think the throttle's stuck. Let's try that. One more time and then we'll just check spark and all that stuff. Wow, okay. Might be the low oil switch. Yeah, it could be a low oil switch. Let me feel the compression real quick. One stroke. Another stroke. So something, it's got to be something spark related. So we got that going on. I do need to get that tank off and wash it. Pretty easy to do. Just a few, let's see, this one just bolts from the top here. Looks like you got 3/8 or 10 millimeters. 4 of those, take it right off here. I can probably do it on camera real quick just to show y'all. So, 4 bolts off. Should just come right off, just like that. Super easy. Nothing bad at all about this. Might take this and just give it a good cleaning real quick. So I do need to do some things around the house before I get to work on this. Try this one more time, guys. I don't know what way is the throttle on and off. Oh, I got the throttle free, so we're good now. Let me see, one more time here. Might just be so much junk on the plug it's not going to run. Compression feels good though, so I don't think it's that. I'll wash it up. We'll get back to and just cleaning the tank. All I'm going to do with the tank is just wash the mess out of it right now. I might put a little bit of a simple green in there, but the tank has just got a ton of junk in it that we need to get flushed out of there. So I'm going to work on that as well, and I'll give this generator a good washing, and I will be right back, and we will try to figure out what's going on with the whole situation when it comes to it not starting. Well, before I even hook anything else up on this, I did clean it, by the way, so it does look better. I have a spark tester hooked in. Just look right there and you will see that we have good spark. So we have good spark. A good way to test if your low oil switch is bad, I think anyways, is just simply unplug it right here. Because all it does is ground, I believe it just grounds itself out. So if you unplug that, you should know if you have an oil issue or a low oil switch issue. Fairly certain. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can simply unplug the low oil switch, and if you have spark there, you know that your oil switch is bad. So now what I've got to do, before I even took the spark plug off, I did that. So now it's just a matter of taking off the spark tester, and we'll give the spark plug a look to see how bad it is. I bet it just needs cleaning, because it's pretty nasty. This is just some of the residue from the tank here that just kind of spilled on the bottom of the carb. So definitely an ultrasonic cleaning for this, and we will get this carb off as well after we look at the spark plug. Alright guys, I checked the spark plug. I don't know if I just showed it to y'all or not, but it looks like this. It's got a little bit of rust and stuff on it. It is sparking though, so that's not the reason why it's not running. I think it's just got just a ton of junk in this thing. So let's look at this. Got a couple of 7/16 inch nuts off. This is really easy to get off here. You just pull the, oh, that breather's cracked, but EPA, right? So I think it's just got so much junk in this intake that it wasn't allowing the spark plug to spark. We need to get this off anyways. If you don't have one of these reverse star bits, I don't know exactly the term for them, but usually I can get a 5/32 and take them off just like so. Alright, so that gets that off. Just make sure you keep all your gaskets and stuff where they need to be. Helps keep the dirt out of the filter. So this is a manual choke. And we're going to see if we can split this thing off from the... There we go. Alright, man. Things break. When they break loose, don't they? So the fuel line's already... Like, we got to replace that anyway, so we've got all that junk here already. What I'm going to try and do here, hopefully these gaskets will stay. I'll go off camera for a second. I'm going to clean that plug off, put it back in, try and pull it and see if we can get it going. Let me make sure the valves are moving like they're supposed to. It looks like it's got some water in it or something. I think I see. I don't think some of the valves are moving. Look inside here. I don't know if the light is good enough for y'all to see. I can feel. I don't see a valve moving in there for the intake, so I'm thinking that that valve is stuck. So that means that we have got to take off the valve cover, which isn't too bad on this. A couple of 10 millimeters, I think it's 10 millimeters. And also, whoever may be wondering about the date code, I found it on the valve cover. And I forgot they did emissions changes in 2003 for EPA stuff. So I knew that it was like 02 to 05 or so. This is an 03. A lot of the flatheads, like your 10 horsepower flatheads and stuff, went away in 03 due to EPA stuff. You have a couple 7/16, couple of 3/8 on the top there. That should get us off this valve cover. We'll check the valves and we'll see what we need to do after that. Well, that'll do it. Right there. Got a bad intake push rod, or an intake valve that has slipped itself off. So got some torques and all that good stuff. We'll slip it back on, adjust everything like it should. Is the exhaust valve working like it should? Yes. The intake is too. If you see it's pushing back up and down and up and down, it just slipped off of the valve guide here. So I will get that back on here very shortly, and we should have a good hopefully a good running generator here in just a second. At least one that'll start for us. Alright guys, I got the carb off. Really easy to do. This is one of those Nicky carbs. It's one of the early ones too. What I do once I take it off, you have two, I think they're JAS screws. They're not Phillips. But I usually, anytime I try and hand crank them off, I don't have any luck. So I just use an impact very lightly, just to jar them enough just to get them broken loose. Otherwise, if you go to town on them, you're going to easily snap these heads off. I expected the carburetor to look a lot worse than it does. It does not look bad at all, actually. Got a little bit of gum up in the jet portion of this one. Again, not bad, though. Not bad at all. You can still see a little bit through the jet there. I assume that it's probably a little bit blocked up and probably need to do a little bit of work to it. So what I've got, the ultrasonic, I'll get this thing fired up and I will put it on the ultrasonic cleaner, let it go to town what I'll do is I'll go through one big cycle here, like 20-30 minutes with the heat on, and then I'm just going to let it sit overnight and just let it soak. Worked really well for a carburetor I just did. I think it was on that chipper, but I ended up putting a new one on there because I needed a gasket, but that's beside the point. Just let all this I'll brush all that out with the wire brush, and honestly I'm just going to let it sit in there, let it do its thing, loosen some stuff up. Get that jet a little bit bigger there, and put it all back together. Obviously take the fuel line off. I do need to do one more thing once I take the fuel line off, clean this up, make sure I can blow air through it so that I can reuse this. Obviously the rubber grommet will be replaced, but hopefully I can reuse this 90 portion. If not, I'll have to order one. So we'll let that do that thing, and we'll go right back to the valve here and get that adjusted again. Alright guys, pardon the ultrasonic back there. We do have that going. But I think, I mentioned earlier that I think this intake valve was stuck. And I can't seem to get it off. Or can't seem to get it moving. Y'all do see that it kind of fell off there. That was a 5/16 just to get the push rod off, or the valve off right there. And now what I'm going to try and do, I'll have to move you back a little bit, is I'm just going to try and give it a tap with this rubber hammer here. Yeah, look how stuck that thing is. Wow. So it's compressed now, and really honestly it's just a matter of somehow trying to figure out how to work it back and forth. I don't know exactly how to do it, but I mean, look how much that thing is compressed. The only thing I can think of is we're going to be really, really careful with this. Yeah, so somehow I've got to get that to where it'll come back. I'm not exactly sure how to do that right now. Usually don't have this issue on overhead valve engines, but I do on this one. Luckily the push rod, oh no, push rod is bent. Look at that. I was not lucky. Dang it. Okay. I might have one of these. I have to look. Because I know I had one that had a bad hit on it a while back. I'll look and see what I have. If I don't have one, I'll have to order one. So definitely give me time to get this fixed right. Let me see what I got, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, good news is I got that fixed. A little bit of WD-40 and a little bit of pushing with hitting with the rubber mallet. Y'all can see that it is moving back and forth again. So basically, after I clean the carb and put it all back together, the only thing that's prohibiting this from running is going to be this bent push rod, which I'm not really going to try and, man, I almost want to see if I can straighten this out. But we can try. It ain't going to hurt nothing, is it? All it's going to do is break this, because this is definitely the weak point. And this is basically going to be what's between us and fixing this thing. So let me probably end up just going to order a new one, because this ain't really anything to play around with in terms of a generator. I thought I had one here, but I don't. So a few bucks, couple days, peace of mind, right? Well, the new push rod is in, and we've got to adjust the valve some. But I'm looking, and you can see that the valve is doing valve things. The intake valve is a little harder to push in than the exhaust. Here's what I think happened. Because I've got this tightened up to where it was. I wonder if this did like that Husqvarna did that I had a few videos back, where the valves just got so loose it just threw off the intake push rod. Or they could have tried to start it. I would have thought there'd be damage maybe to the valve here, the valve guide, but there's not. So I'm thinking that what happened was it just got too loose and just ran itself out. Or, while it was running, it fell off. Or they were trying to start it and the intake valve was stuck. One of the three. So, I'm going to adjust the valve. I think that's a T40 on these and like a half. And you just have to loosen the nut, adjust this T40 in or out, depending on where you want to go. We want to go in, so you'll be clockwise. And we're going to get these to about 10 thousandths, or 5 thousandths on the feeler gauge. I'll put the valve cover on, and then I'll join you when we put the carb back on. Alright folks, everything is checked out. The oil is full. It will need changing. It's a little dark, but nothing crazy. Valves are moving like they're supposed to. I've put the carburetor back on and routed the fuel lines back. Put the spark plug back in with the spark plug wire. Fairly easy to put the carb back on. One of these are the Nickies, and you just have to remember to put that spring at the bottom of the jet to provide a little bit of spring action for the bowl to hold everything tight in there. So that's how it goes. This cover here with the 2 bolts, and then on the inside you have one 10 millimeter right in that area right there, and that also holds on the engine cover. Gas is in it. There are no leaks. I put a new fuel grommet in, a bunch of new fuel line, and so only the wild card is hopefully this thing doesn't screw up another intake push rod. I think the problem was the valve was too loose, because when I screwed it all back together, it seemed like the valve was really loose. So let's see what happens, I suppose. Hopefully it'll run. Switch is on. Choke is on. Let's see. Woo. She is going to be smoky. Woo. If it runs. That might explain what was going on. That thing is wide open. Wow. Does run though, that's good. Oh, okay. So, give me just a second, I'll show you what I think may be going on here. So I was going to take off the cover to access it. It was a little bit of a pain. I think I can access it through this hole right here. I don't know how well y'all can see that, but inside that hole is a tab. There it is. You see that tab is kind of bent up? I think it's supposed to be fairly straight. And what that tab is this the governor spring. So I can feel, like, you see all of that resistance right where you can't feel it, but there is a ton of resistance on that governor spring from where that tab has been bent up. So what I need to do is get in there and bend that tab back down. That makes sense now. They have this thing running wide open, and that would explain a lot, wouldn't it? So let me push that tab down. I don't know if you can see it better right there or not. Ugh. It's back down in there. It looks like it should be fairly flat. Mine's at about a 45-degree angle. And hopefully that fixes the issue. So, I usually don't do story time in the middle of a video, but I wanted to spare y'all the expense of all the toil and trouble that I went through in order to get this to where it currently is, and I'll show you all I ended up had to do off camera. Basically, I just got into it yesterday evening and filmed, and it took probably 2 to 3 hours to get to this point. So I think I left y'all off with me putting the intake valve back in. I put the valve cover and stuff back on, and it started up and ran. Y'all heard it run wide open for about 2 seconds before I shut it off, and I think that's where we left it. So after that, I was like, oh man, I thought the governor spring was really stretched out. I think that's what I showed y'all, and what I ended up doing is messing up that governor spring, but I think it didn't really matter anyways, and let me tell you why. So long story short, I tried different spring setups. I thought I was missing an idle, the governed spring that's on the rear of these, but I think that's only for throttle applications and not fixed throttle applications like this. And so I said, oh man, it just seems like the governor's out of it. I don't know why. And so I'll show you what I did with the governor. And it came back, to my surprise. Put a different spring on it, it ran fine. Put the original spring back on it, the governor slipped off or let go again for some reason. So right before I went in last night, I reset the governor, put the second spring, not the original spring, back on it, and that seemed to have done it. But then, oh by the way, the pull rope broke while I was trying to do all this, so I had to replace the pull rope. And then, of course, I moved the throttle tab off so much, I tried to weld it back, but that didn't work, that it broke off. So I had to devise a different way of doing this. I think I've got it basically as good as I'm going to get it, y'all. So, let's look. Let me just pull y'all over here and let me show you. And then we'll run it, and I'll put everything up, and we'll wrap this up. So y'all saw me put the carb back on. I still think I've got one of the valves that's seeping a little bit, but I am going to let it run probably for about 15-20 minutes here to see if I can get it to work. So in order, when I replace the pull rope, to get that off, you have to take the carb back off. This is like 5/32. Socket will fit over these reverse star bits if you don't have those here or at home. And then you have your 3/8, 3/8, and then a 3/8. There's a plastic cover that goes over this, which I have to put back on. It's just attached by that 3/8 right there, and then 2 7/16 that go on top of the valve cover there. Took that off, replaced the pull rope. Y'all seen me do that many a times. And then the tab, I got the governor, everything set good, and then the tab broke on the throttle. So what I have done is in this throttle plate, governor plate, whatever you want to call it here, I drilled a hole, found a spring, put the spring through it, and it's on there now. I got it on the A setting because that's just where the best that it works. Don't want to put too much stress on the governor because apparently it didn't like it with the other spring. And like I said, I am going to run it a good half hour or so, and then I'll wrap this video up, because I don't want this governor slipping off or doing whatever. Now for the governor, you need to have the throttle wide open, which is like it is now. You take the 7/16 inch nut right here off, and then you may be able to fit a socket on it, but I put vice grips. Turn that thing all the way to the right, tighten this bad boy back down as it's turned all the way to the right with the throttle wide open, and that should set your governor. You should feel a little bit of rebound on it. So that's where we're at. Before I put it all back together and test this out for real, I'll show you that it runs. And also to access that throttle area there, there's like 2 screws on the front and 2 bolts in the back. I think it's 8 mil in the front and 10 mil in the back, and that exposes all of this. So what was going on when the governor wasn't good is it was revving up really high with the voltage, and then when I put load on it with the generator motor, it will bog way down. And you want to keep that range of voltage as good as you can, or as close as you can, really, to around 110 to 120. It's okay to be like at idle or with no load on it. If it's closer to 130, it's okay. Once you put a load on it, you don't want it to be over 125. And you don't really want it to be less than about 100. So I think we've got it in range. Let me start it up here. I'll show you that it runs. You have to choke it a little bit. I think one of the valves is seeping just a little bit. Kind of hear it a little bit. There's a little, you know. Let's come back here. So you can hear it's got a little bit of a to it. I don't know how well it goes up on camera. I think that may be a result of when it over revved and the push rod came off. That's why I'm going to run it long term for a good at least 15 minutes to see if it gets worse, better, or what. This thing is loud. One of the louder generators I've had. But you can see the range. You know, at rest with no load on it, it's right around 130. Once I put 1500 watts on it, everything kicks in and it's around 115 to 120. And so that's about the range as to what it drops off when you put a load on it. So that tells me that the governor works, and the governor spring setup that I have devised works okay too. So, let me put everything back together. Hopefully this is the last thing we're going to be doing on this, and we'll wrap this video up. A lot of lessons learned on this one, guys. A lot of lessons, a lot of toil and trouble. But I think we got it. I need to change oil in it too, by the way. Let me do that. I'll be right back. Just the slightest miss. Alright, so we've run it for almost 20 minutes now, and it's the governor's holding and all that good stuff. So I mean, I hope we're ready. I hope we're ready. We'll go ahead and wrap this video up. All right, well, if you told me yesterday that this thing would be ready to rock and roll today, I don't know if I'd have told you that I'd believe you, but it is ready to go now. So, man, we hit all the trials on this, and I posted on my Instagram whenever I was doing this. It's like everything I've touched this week has just been crazy. Y'all saw the yard machine's transmission swap where I broke the transmission housing. The yard machine's wood chipper, as a follow-up to that video, I actually had to swap out the gas tank because that didn't work cleaning out the rust. And it was like it blew out a carb diaphragm, and it took had that thing apart 1,000 times this week. It's not really been a productive week, but finally we made headway on all 3 of these. And this one's ready to go. Kind of want to take the carb back off and see if I can get that last little bit of hunting out of there, but I think runtime will help that the most. It cleared up some just by running it for that 15 minutes. You got to remember, these things right here, whenever I get them, they probably ain't been running years. So it's not like you're getting them out after the winter and putting them back together and getting them ready for the season. This is like, this thing's been up in a shed, hasn't been used since the last storm 3 years ago, and then probably was taken out then and it didn't start and somebody put it back and bought a new, you never know. So this thing's back ready to rock and roll again, thankfully. The governor setup, I know it's not the correct way to do it, but all you need is the proper tension on a spring to the linkage, and that's what it's doing. We're pulling about 125 to 130 with no load on it. As soon as you kick a load on it, it drops within that 105 to 125 range with about 1500 watts on it. It's right there in the sweet spot, just under 120. I know you want to be around 110 to 120. My house pulls, I think, like 126, so you don't really want to be above 130. Nor do you want to be below 100, otherwise you'll be frying appliances or frying whatever you put in there or something along those lines. So that's it for this. Hope you all enjoyed the video. We put fuel lines on it, did an ultrasonic cleaner of the carburetor, and did an extensive work to find out that we just need to adjust the governor, but that's okay. Everything's a learning experience, right? I don't do this for a living. I do it on the side. And I learn on every machine. I do not claim to be a professional, nor will I probably ever will be, but we can still get it done nonetheless. And the videos are out here to try and help y'all out. So I'm not going to claim to be the best in the world at anything, because I'm not. But this thing's ready to roll. I appreciate y'all watching. If you have any questions about this video or any other video you see on the channel, feel free to reach out to me, Ellis at ellismowers.com, or at ellismowers09 on Instagram and Facebook. And as you can see by the driveway, we got a lot more projects coming down the line here. We've got a lot to get ready for the spring. Thanks again for all the support, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. See you then.